The Senate has passed the finance bill, which when signed into law will make Nigerians pay more value-added tax in 2020. The value-added tax bill is one of the 7 bills that form part of the finance bill, which the Senate has passed. Our correspondent Linda Akigbe reports.
Those against say nay, the ayes have it.
Senate President Ahmed Lawan promised that the upper chamber will quickly pass the finance bill, and this is exactly what has happened. The Senate is passing the finance bill less than 2 months after President Buhari sent it to the National Assembly. The bill seeks to amend 7 tax bills, ultimately to shore up government revenue and fund the 2020 budget. The bills are value-added tax, personal income tax, petroleum profit tax, companies income tax, capital gains tax, Stamp Duties Act, and Customs and Excise Tariff.
I want to rely on...
There are, however, concerns from opposition lawmakers that the amendment, particularly the increase in value-added tax from 5 to 7.5%, could increase the hardship of Nigerians.
We feel that the rate of tax should be left as it is. Nigerians are suffering too much already.
What I would have expected, I don't know whether that is in the offing, that the federal government should also in the same vein try to create some social safety net that we at least ameliorate the pains that people are going to go through. This is a shock. People are not used to this. Then it comes so sudden.
While PDP lawmakers want the VAT to remain at 5%, senators in the ruling APC argue that the accruable revenue from the increased VAT regime is worth the discomfort.
Leaders must be ready to take tough decisions. Indeed, if you look at the quantum of taxes that are being paid in all of those other climes, and we compare with what we are doing here, then you know clearly that there's this huge gap.
This bill is about Nigerian people. And this bill we are not taxing the very poor. These are all luxurious items for the VAT.
Speaking with journalists after the finance bill is passed, the chairman, Senate Committee on Finance, says the bill is not only about increasing taxes.
Yes, VAT become a very major concern because of the increment that they have sought for, that is from 5 to 7.5%. But also included in this finance bill, we now have reliefs for some small companies. That is, if your revenue as a company is less than 25 million naira, you are exempted from payment of VAT and also tax.
The finance bill is expected to promote fiscal equity and reform Nigeria's domestic tax laws. But it's one thing to increase revenue and quite another to ensure that revenue generated is properly managed and not frittered away as it has happened in the past. Linda Akigbe, Channels Television News.
Meanwhile, the Nigeria Governors Forum is throwing its full weight behind the federal government's proposed increase in value-added tax from 5 to 7.5%, insisting it's of great necessity to increase revenue generation in order to address the nation's infrastructure problems. And after the meeting of the governors in Abuja, the deputy chairman of the forum, Mr. Aminu Tambuwal, maintains that there is need for all states to think of new ways of increasing revenue generation. On the issue of the proposed death sentence for hate speech, Mr. Tambuwal appeals to the National Assembly to follow due process and subject the bill to public hearing.
We are in support of what will definitely improve on the revenue generation drive of both the federal government and states. And we're appealing to those probably who have no proper understanding of the context of those bills to kindly have a rethink and reflect on the quantum of work that is ahead of us as a country and as states. We need a lot of resources to turn around infrastructure, to invest in education, to invest in healthcare, to virtually invest in every sector of our national life. So there is the urgent need for more revenues in Nigeria. So I appeal that we should show more understanding with the federal government in that regard.
Now let's examine the issue further, talking about the finance bill. I'm now being joined on the news at 10 by a partner at Anderson Tax, Mr. Chinedu Ezomike. Thanks a lot for joining us on the news at 10.
Thank you very much, Ijoma.
All right, so what do you make of the bill being passed today? Let's start from there.
Okay, I mean, we always knew that the Senate will pass this thing quickly because the president submitted it, like you know, the president submitted the bill with the budget, and they are hoped to pass it together with the budget. On Tuesday this week, the Senate held a public hearing to get the public opinion on the bill, and a lot of people shared their views. So today, the Senate passed it. But it's interesting that it's only the VAT that people are talking about. So I want to give you a bit of background to this bill so that we can appreciate the journey. This bill has been 3 years in the making. In 2016, the then finance minister set up a committee to look at the national tax policy. And they looked at it with the aim of reforming it to make it align with global best practices. So this bill follows from that. In 2017, February, the FEC approved the national tax policy. And then the journey then continues. The biggest reform in this bill is not the VAT, it's actually this Companies Income Tax Act, where it resolved a lot of controversial issues that have been litigated over and over and over without clear judicial guidance.
What are some of those controversial issues?
So if you look at Section 19 of the Companies Income Tax Act, where the provision makes it possible that even when a company makes profit and has paid taxes and then has retained earnings from that profit, whenever it wants to redistribute that profit, there is a risk that it will be taxed again if the dividend distributed that year is more than its profit for that year. Now, we always knew that it didn't make sense, but that was what the law says. This bill has resolved that. You have new companies who are in their first 4 years of business running the risk of being taxed twice based on what they call the commencement rule. This bill resolved that. And a host of other issues. And the small businesses who make less than 25 million naira revenue, this bill took out their tax payments and said no more taxes, but you need to file your returns. And then businesses that have turnover of 25 million to 100 million reduce their CIT to 30%, from 30 to 20%. So those are positive aspects of the bill. And a host of others. The VAT aspect, yes, increases from 5% to 7.5%.
Yes, and that's particularly what interests a lot of people, because you already have the argument that the borders are closed and the people are crying, those who are doing legitimate business, who say they're doing legitimate business to cross over and it's more difficult. And now you're starting a new year with this kind of thing. Is it targeting? I know you did say it's targeting the right. Is it targeting the right group of people? Okay.
Yes. When the government flew the kite earlier, like last year, I think, the idea was to make it 10%. There was a lot of pushback. So now they dropped it to 7.5%. And not just that, they've excluded, again, small businesses, people with revenue less than 25 million, so that they make sure that the small people are not burdened with the burden of taxation. So the additional 2.5%, yes, is significant, but we always knew this will come because, like we just heard in the news, the governors are happy with it because don't forget that only 50% of VAT goes to the federal government, actually. 50% actually goes to the states, and that is where the money is needed most.
Well, one of the questions that did come into us, which I want to put to you, is those who say that the bill touches on capital gains, which is where portfolio investors play. So how does this affect what goes on at the capital markets and etc.? One of our viewers would like to find out that. Yeah,
I mean, absolutely. It actually, again, encourages investment in the capital market. I know a lot of controversial issues that were not clear in the CIT Act. That's why I said the major changes are actually in the CIT. It kind of resolves those issues for investors in that space. Again, for capital gains tax, for example, if you look at where companies are doing merger and acquisition, there's always been an issue of, okay, if a company is transferring assets from one business to the other within the same group, should VAT apply? It has taken out that VAT, has made it clear that VAT shouldn't apply, and capital gains shouldn't apply. So what I'm saying is that we need to appreciate the bill for what it is. A lot of private sector ideas went into the bill. It's not really from government to the businesses. When we talk about taxation, the main focus is businesses who are required to comply with taxes. That's assuming you get all the businesses that have actually been captured. Yes. Now we're talking about people that are in the tax net already. And then there's another major aspect of this bill that is very interesting. Now, you know that the last time we reviewed our CIT was in 2007, which is like 12 years ago. Now, the tax is supposed to be dynamic in its nature because as businesses transform, tax is supposed to transform because it needs to follow the trend. Now, we have a lot of digital economy right now. We have people who are able to, watch movies or music, and based on the way our tax law is country structured, you need to be present in Nigeria to be seen as doing business in Nigeria. This bill, again, defines what we call economic presence. So even if you are not here in Nigeria, you can be considered to be economically present because you are deriving income from Nigeria. So that will enable us, again, expand the tax base that people that up to now are not taxable in Nigeria might become taxable in Nigeria. That's offshore companies.
All right, and when we look at inflation, how does this affect? Because, you know, we have that rise of 11.26% in October, and, you know, people are actually groaning under, yes, the economists like yourself say on paper we're doing fantastic and all these things are good, but when you look at the effect on the average Nigerian, a lot of people are complaining.
Yes, I mean, unfortunately, it might impact inflation. But again, a lot of things impact inflation. Like you said, the closing of the border, increase in everything.
Yeah, but you see, it's all happening around the same time.
I agree completely that increasing VAT, this might not be the right time to increase VAT.
Yes, but that's what I wanted you to say.
I agree with you completely. But I'm saying that I have shared the journey to show that it wasn't something that just happened knee-jerk. You know, people assume that, oh, the government has a budget and they want to fund the budget and they want to collect money from Nigerians. No, this is actually part of the reform that has been ongoing. And hopefully, as businesses are encouraged to invest more in the stock market and all that, maybe the economy will get a positive impact from it.
And just finally, what happens to the nation's tax to GDP ratio?
Again, you know, we have been stuck with the 6% tax to GDP for a long time.
Yes.
And so as we try to expand the tax base, bringing in more people into the tax net, and then as we bring more clarity and certainty to the tax space, hopefully the tax to GDP ratio will improve.
All right, Mr. Chinedu Ezomike, that's a partner at Anderson Tax. Thanks for sharing your thoughts with us and giving us clarity on the news at 10 tonight. Thank you.
Thank you very much.